Hello, brothers, sisters, and friends, and welcome to the Fight Like Hell podcast. This is the official podcast of the National Association of Letter Carriers, the union that represents over 290,000 active and retired letter carriers employed by the United States Postal Service. I'm your host, Eddie Morgan, and with me, as always, is our national president, Brian Renfro. Hey, Brian, how are you today?
Hey, Eddie, I'm doing great. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving to you. This is Thanksgiving week, our Thanksgiving episode. We're going to have a community service episode, and we're going to have the guys from Flushing Branch 294 in New York coming on to talk about what they do with their blood drive. It's going to be a good episode.
Yeah, I'm sure our listeners will enjoy hearing about that. We were able to honor the branch as part of our Heroes of the Year ceremony earlier this year, and it's a really cool thing that they do. And I think there's a lot of lessons that can be taken away from that for branches that may be interested in doing something similar. So great conversation with one of NALC's very best branches.
Yeah, and I hope you guys can take away from this episode not only, what they do, but how they do it and how to start on that year one level. They're 20 years into their blood drive and they've got it running like a machine, but how you can take that and apply it to your branch, no matter what size.
Yeah, and in the conversation with them, we kind of dove into that, how they've built it over the years and try to keep people coming back, so to speak, with every event they have. So it was a great conversation.
Before we get into that, let's get it started off. And this week begins peak season for us. Just want to remind all the carriers out there to take care of yourself. I know you're going to be working long and hard. Make sure you're taking care of your fellow carriers. When you're out on the route, make sure you do the letter carrier wave. Make sure you get that wave back to make sure that those carriers are okay and working safely. Make sure that you're being safe and you're working safe. Report. I know you're busy and you can't be. You're worried about all the stress and getting the mail delivered and getting home safely. But if your equipment's faulty, write it up. Don't take anything out that's unsafe. You have to. I know it's trite to say, safety begins with you, but in this season specifically, it really does begin with you. And try to be as safe as you can out there because we need you to get home to your families and your friends.
Yeah, very well said, Eddie. This is, to most people, they view this, and it's true, that this is the time of year that we really shine, the Postal Service and letter carriers and what we do. But as every letter carrier listening to this knows, it's an awful lot of hard work during this time of year. And over the years, peak season has changed some. Peak season used to be a time where I guess we've always had more parcels during peak season than other periods of the year, but it was really primarily for a long time driven by increased mail volume and Christmas cards and so on. Well, now, while we've already got this parcel growth that happens all the time, it really ramps up during peak season. So the work for us is more physical. Everybody's out there working longer hours. And, Eddie, as you said, safety is always number one, but, it's particularly important when we're working long hours. We're doing more physical work than we've ever done before. We're doing more physical work because of the sheer number of packages that we handle. The longer hours you work, we get tired, we get fatigued. And we also, in a lot of parts of the country during this time of year, we start to see the weather change and start to see snow and ice and, all those things. So there's a lot of stuff that happens over this peak season that contributes to, potential safety hazards. So I think it's really, really important to do exactly what you said, Eddie. Those things that we can control, the things that we can identify, whether it's equipment or some sort of work method or where we're parking, whatever it is out there, just pay particular attention to the things that might create a potential safety issue and do what you can do to get those addressed. And most importantly, when you're out there and you're working those long hours this time of year, take care of yourself. That's the most important thing. So safety is always important, and we should always have an awareness of it. But I think it's particularly important this time of year when we're working long hours and, doing in a lot of cases, much more physical work as far as just the sheer number of packages we're handling, that we pay really close attention and do everything we can to keep ourselves safe.
I'm glad you mentioned the weather. We had a cold stretch in the Midwest over the last few weeks there. If you have a newer carrier on the workroom floor, make sure you pull them aside, give them your tips and tricks for staying as warm as they can, whether it's layers or what chapstick you're using or what protection you're using out there to stay warm. Help out your fellow younger carriers.
Yeah, but give them all the advice, share all the knowledge you can. Those things you mentioned, things like watch out for those painted porch steps, when it gets cold, all the little things like that we know, someone that started this job in May, has not experienced that. So, Letter Care is doing an awesome job of that. And now we have a structured mentor program where, people share all sorts of information about the job. But as we get into this winter season in a lot of areas, I think you're exactly right. It's even more important to share the little tips to help them stay safe.
And just want to mention the overtime exclusion period starts November 29th and runs through December 6th. You just want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah. So every year the Postal Service notifies us of what the exact dates of what we call a December exclusion period where penalty overtime is not paid. A couple of things I want to point out. We have a pay rate that was negotiated in the 2023 agreement for those that exceed 12 hours in a day or 60 hours in a week, regardless of the reason why, regardless of it applies to everyone in the letter carrier craft, that they get paid 2.5 times pay. There is no exclusion period for that. So in December, if you exceed 12 in a day or 60 in a week, you will get the 2.5 times pay. But the December exclusion period is for penalty overtime, which during the other 11 months of the year is paid for those that exceed 10 hours in a day or 56 hours in a week. In the December period, and every year in the Postal Bulletin, the Postal Service publishes what that period is. As you said, this year it's from November 29th through December the 26th, I believe. You will not be paid penalty overtime. And I just want to point out something, a little bit of history of how this came about. I think, I'm often asked questions of, in years past when this was negotiated, which at this point was decades ago, why did the NALC give up December? And that's not really how it happened. What happened is we negotiated and gained penalty overtime. So we negotiated, there was a point in time where you only got paid overtime if you worked regular overtime, if you worked past 10 in a day or 56 in a week. What the union did years ago is negotiated this penalty overtime rate of double time after 10 in a day or 56 in a week. And part of that negotiation was that the Postal Service would have an exception to that during the month of December. So it's not as if we gave away December, it's that we gained it in the other 11 months of the year, much like we gained the 2.5 times pay for exceeding 12 or 60, though it has no December exception.
Good. Open season still going on. That's running through Monday, December 8th. Make sure you sign up or change your benefits. You have to go through the OPM website. I've asked Sarah, our producer, to provide a link. I know people have been looking. I've seen on social media, people have been looking on Postalese and Light Blue, seeing where they make those changes. You have to go to the OPM website, and we provided a link here in the description, wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you go through that. We want to mention that the NALC Health Benefit Plan is there for you. It's a plan that's run by letter carriers for letter carriers. Check that out. You can also check out the episode that we had a few episodes ago with Brian and Stephanie Stewart talking about the health benefit plan. Just want to make sure you check out the NALC Health Benefit Plan website, nalchbp.org. You can check your mail. Hold on one second. You should be getting a lot of mail these days. This is the mail that I got from the NALC Health Benefit Plan. As we open it up there, you got a letter from Stephanie and Brian. And then you also have your NALC Health Benefit Plan brochure. So make sure you're checking this stuff out. Don't make sure that you're not um, ignoring it. Make sure that you're taking the time, you're not procrastinating, you're not waiting till that Monday and saying, damn, I should have done that. Make sure you're taking a look at that stuff. If you have any questions about the plan, you can reach out to the plan at 888-636-6252. 888-636-6252. That's NALC, the NALC Health Benefit Plan.
Yeah, we cannot encourage you and put this strongly enough. If you haven't at least looked into your health benefit options, specifically the NALC plan, and now that open season has been going on for, I guess, close to 3 weeks, please do that, because what's going to happen is Thanksgiving's coming up, and then there's the week after Thanksgiving, and everybody gets busy, and all of a sudden it's over. We deal with this every single year when a lot of people at the last minute really try to dig in and make pretty significant decisions in terms of their health care, and there's obviously a financial implication. For most people, that's going to be a positive financial implication if they choose the NLC health benefit plan. But that's a really hard thing to do on that last day when we get to the deadline. So as soon as you're listening to this, if you haven't done this already, as Eddie said, check out the website. It's nalchpp.org. Listen to the episode where we had Stephanie on and talked about a lot of different things, not just the history of the plan and some of the current issues that are happening, but a lot of the benefits and all about this open season process. If you have any question, do not hesitate. Call our health plan, 888-636-6252. Our hours are 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern time. Those extended hours, for many years, we were open until 3:30 p.m. Now it's 6 p.m., and that's going to remain in place. So as you listen to this, chances are you've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 weeks or so left of open season if you're listening right after this episode comes out, and it's going to go by fast. So please, please, please dig in. Give the plan a call, 888-636-6252, and they will be happy to answer any questions you have and help you out with anything that you need.
Getting in some postal news, we had the USPS fiscal year report come out. You just want to talk about what that said?
Yeah, every year. So the Postal Service fiscal year runs from October 1st to September 30th. And every year, several weeks, usually roughly 6 weeks after that fiscal year ends, they release their financial results for that fiscal year. And this report came out last week. The Postal Service lost about $9 billion last year. That is roughly the same amount that they lost the previous fiscal year, the 2024 fiscal year. That was the year that ended September 30th of 2024. Obviously that is not a positive thing. We'd much rather them be in the black as opposed to in the red, but there's some differences between last year and this year when you dig into the details. This is something that their financial situation we've been dealing with for decades now, almost 2 decades. So, overall, it's a huge part of what we do as a union to engage in where their finances are, the things that we might need to do on Capitol Hill to, make improvements for a better path for the future, because the fact of the matter is, the job security of letter carriers depends on the long-term sustainability of the Postal Service. And, a huge part of representing our members is ensuring that we have a place to work now and long into the future. When we see results like this, the immediate danger is that it often opens doors or empowers people that, to be quite honest, are usually motivated by something other than their financial results, but it opens a door for them to attack things like collective bargaining. We've over the years seen threats to, curtail and cut back and worsen service. So we've got to be wary of those things in the short term. So it's something we engage in all the time. We probably, Eddie, you and I have talked about maybe in the, next several weeks doing an episode where we dive into some of the details of these financial results and what it means, not just now, but really what we have to do is look forward. what are the things that can be done, whether that's legislatively, whether that's what the Postal Service needs to do operationally, the revenue they have from parcels and mail, all those sorts of things. So I think in a future episode we'll do a deep dive. But our immediate concern is not just digesting these results and trying to plan long term, but really being on the lookout for those that may try to take advantage of them to attack us. And there's usually a line of people that are ready at a moment's notice to jump in. We've seen that for many years now, but we're pretty well positioned to defend that stuff.
You just mentioned, securing our jobs, but in every letter carrier's mind is the collective bargaining and our next agreement that comes up. How do we defend or overcome like this news in collective bargaining?
Yeah, I mean, it's a part of it, whether we like it or not. And to be honest, it's been a little different each time, but basically we've had to deal with them being in a pretty poor financial state in the 2011, 2016, 2019, and 2023 rounds of collective bargaining. And the reason we have to deal with this is because when we end up in interest arbitration, we put on our case for what we believe we should achieve. The Postal Service puts on their case, and the primary thing the Postal Service is going to bring to the table to say we can't do this or we can't do that is because we don't have any money. So their financial position becomes a significant part of it. And as we go through the collective bargaining process and we prepare for interest arbitration, we have to be prepared for what we think they would present as it relates to their financial situation. So for us, it is being fully prepared to present our view of their financial situation, both where it currently is, very importantly, what letter carriers have done over the years to contribute in a positive way to their financial situation. In other words, it'd be a whole lot worse if it wasn't for the work we do. But then also talking about what the path is going forward, because when you're negotiating a contract, you're talking about cost for the Postal Service that they're arguing that they cannot pay because of their financial position. We're talking about in the future. So to the extent we can lay out a vision in the future, whatever that entails, that's a positive for us. So, being prepared for what they present, it's no different. A lot of you listening to this are people that handle grievances, either as a shop steward at informal A or formal step A or step B, a lot of arbitration advocates. If you walk into any sort of, even a grievance meeting at informal step A, you better have tried to anticipate what you think your counterpart is going to bring to the table. And to put it as simply as I can, that is the piece as it relates to collective bargaining that we prepare for. The fact is they bring primarily their financial results to the table. So we got to be ready for that.
The Postmaster General had some remarks about revenue streams and getting out of our financial status right now. Do you want to talk about those remarks that he made?
Yeah. Overall, it's consistent with, what he's said publicly and privately. And he's been here for, I guess, 4 months, a little over 4 months now. And, on one hand, we do have some concern about last mile delivery partnerships, not certainly no opposition to us delivering things in the last mile, but ensuring that whoever ships those things pays a fair price for them. That's been an issue in years past. So we've clearly communicated that. But overall, kind of from a high level perspective, it's certainly much better to hear leadership at the Postal Service talk about new revenue streams and increasing revenue as opposed to some of the things we can think, not necessarily with the last Postmaster General, but with the two before the last Postmaster General, where, the conversation publicly was not about increasing revenue. It was about cutting service and slashing days of delivery and getting rid of cutting back the workforce and things like that. So we are, of course, supportive of basically anything we can do. We think the Postal Service's network of us being able to deliver anywhere in the country, 7 days a week is extremely valuable, and it's refreshing for the leadership at the Postal Service, at least publicly and at least from a very general perspective, to appear to want to leverage that network to provide more services and increase revenue. So, we'll continue to dig in with them and engage on what that looks like, but it's a positive in a general sense. But like many other things, the devil will be in the details.
Uh, by the time this podcast comes out, we'll have been through the wrap session. Hope everyone gets home safely from Cleveland. Hope you got good, safe travel. You don't get hung up anywhere. And just want to talk about how we're going to get this information out. So, how do we get this out? What happened at the wrap session? How do we get this information out at the national level? And what are the branch presidents and branch leadership tasked with about bringing that information home and making sure it gets out to the membership?
Yeah, we're really excited about the wrap. We've got some cool stuff planned, as we've talked about here. This is, our branch and state leaders will be there. But we plan to do a number of different things. Basically, the premise is to share as much as we can with those that are not in attendance at the wrap session, with members that may be interested. So there'll be a lot of, social media content in terms of pictures and probably some little video stuff. I think you and I on Saturday after the workshops, which are basically our executive council bargaining committee sharing what they worked on and getting feedback from the people in attendance. I think you and I are by the time you're listening to this, hopefully you've already heard it. I'm going to do a little bit of a recap of both Saturday and Sunday at the wrap session. So just to try to share and bring to those that are not in attendance what's going on. So, pay attention to this podcast feed, pay attention to our social media channels, and we'll have a lot of information out there. Those are mostly kind of new age media stuff. You mentioned our branch presidents. So our branch presidents and state presidents are the designees, or the people that participate in this wrap session. And this is not a new age thing. They have for a long time. When they attend something like this, they're representing the members of their branch, and they're tasked with taking the information that they learn there and bringing that back to the branch. And every branch does that differently. Obviously, your branch meetings or newsletters, or some branches have stand-up talks in stations. Some have social media accounts themselves and discussion groups and, all sorts of things. So I would say, pay attention to our social media channels, and more than likely, and hopefully for everybody listening, if your branch or state president is able to attend, that they'll bring back and share from their perspective what they experienced at the national wrap session.
This is Thanksgiving week. Just want to ask you personally, you got any favorite Thanksgiving items you'd like to eat?
Well, I like all of it, but I don't know, a couple of things. As far as like traditional stuff, I'm not much of a dessert person, but I love sweet potato pie. So I like pretty much anything with sweet potatoes. But where I'm from in South Mississippi, both for Thanksgiving and Christmas, it's really common to have a really good gumbo. So I also have had a lot of gumbo on Thanksgiving, but gumbo has got to be done right. And that means I have to go south close to home to have it. So those would be my two things.
Yeah. Shout out to Mama Renfro there.
Indeed.
Yeah. And just want to, in Philadelphia, we have a tradition where carriers come out of my station and actually walk in the Thanksgiving Day parade. They're on the clock, which is a good thing. Go Union. And they actually are in the parade collecting letters along the route for Santa Claus. So they're right there before Santa Claus comes out. It's the oldest Thanksgiving Day parade in America. So just happy Thanksgiving, all those carriers out there in the parade. And then all the carriers and all the members of our union. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. And, on behalf of all the members of our union, for all our listeners, we appreciate what you do for letter carriers, what you do for the Postal Service, what you do for the people that we serve. We hope everyone has a wonderful and happy Thanksgiving.
All right, so now let's get to our segment here on branch 294, Flushing, New York. Phil Kahn and Andrew, and take it away.
Well, we are pleased to be joined on the Fight Like Hell podcast by a couple of members from NALC, one of NALC's very best branches, branch 294 in Flushing, New York. So, gentlemen, let's begin with giving you the opportunity to introduce yourself to our listeners. Phil, we'll start with you.
Good evening. Thank you, Brian. Yes, my name is Phil Kahn, Philippe Kahn. I'm the branch elect. I'm the president elect. I was just elected this year. I was elected in November of last year, but I started my term in January. And I transitioned from being the treasurer of the branch for the last 6 years. I was also part of the DRT for the last 3 years. So transitioning to presidency was not in my near future, but Tony, former president, Tony Palillo, he retired finally, I believe, after 30 plus years on the job, and somebody needs to step up and take over the reins, and I was the chosen one. So it wasn't an easy road. I wasn't privy to all the labor management meetings and route adjustment meetings and the normal stuff that presidents and the top 3-5 officers usually interact with. So in January, try to hit the road running, but I had a couple of roadblocks. One of which was route adjustments, not route inspections, but route adjustments. And I didn't quite understand the severity of what the installation was asking me for. So it was a little rough going with that process. To be clear, because there's so many other things that the president has to do that people don't normally see. We have a branch paper that we do every quarter. We have our regular meetings every month for 12 months. And within those 12 months, we have 3 different blood drives that we're going to talk about tonight. Other than that, I appreciate the invitation to the podcast. I also appreciate Brian coming to our retirees luncheon a couple of weeks ago. And then I saw Brian again down in Orlando for the COP. So I've been getting a lot of introductions to the executive national board here. With that being said, I'll let Andy Fontanetta. He's also our editor, a blood drive coordinator, and also the food drive coordinator of Branch 294. Andy?
Thank you, Phil, and thank you, Brian, for this opportunity. My name is Andy Fontanetta. I'm an active letter carrier still in Forest Hills. I got a little over 38 years on the job. I've been on the same route 35 years, Postal Post route. During the years of my service, one of the 2 things that really stand in my head and I like to brag about is that I received the Million Mile Award from the NALC. 35 years, I never got into a motor vehicle accident. And recently this year, I received the Partnership Award with ex-president Tony Palillo. We went down to Washington and we really enjoyed it and had a great time. I've been on the board several years. I started out as a trustee. And the last 2 terms, I'm the editor of the branch newspaper, which comes out 4 times a year. We try and do one every season, winter, spring, summer, and fall. It's really a good paper. It's like having the union meeting, going to the members' houses. Also, I've been a shop steward in my station for 24 years. So, and as Phil said, I'm the blood drive coordinator, the food drive coordinator. So I keep busy, and I enjoy it. It's very good. It makes the job interesting.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff, and I'm really excited to get into this. Andy, as you mentioned, your branch was honored as one of our heroes of the year, won one of the awards at the ceremony and luncheon that we have every year. That was in the spring of this year, and I'm really excited for us to have the opportunity to dig into exactly what you guys do with a blood drive, because it's really phenomenal, and I think our listeners will really enjoy hearing, and it'll just be another thing to make them another reason to be proud of being a letter carrier. But before we get to those details, as I mentioned, you guys are in Flushing, New York. So Phil, why don't you just tell the listeners a little bit about the branch, where you are, size of the branch, and that type stuff, just kind of basic information. Then we'll dive in to the blood drive itself.
Sure. Flushing is one of the, let me back up. New York City is made up of 5 different boroughs, one of which is Queens. And Queens is actually one of the only boroughs that's actually broken up into several smaller installations: Long Island City, Jamaica, and Flushing. Flushing being our installation that we protect the members. We have about 1,000 active members, about 500 retired members. Flushing is more or less in the northeast portion of Queens. We have the honor of being the most diverse borough in the nation. You can go to our little towns within Flushing, and you can partake of a variety of ethnic food, cultures, and even traditional food and culture. So we're a melting pot of cultures in Flushing, which is also reflected in our membership and our current board. It was quite different when I first started in 1994. I've experienced a lot of different things since then. Unfortunately, 9/11, which happened in New York City, the housing crash in 2008, and recently the pandemic, which affected all of us in major ways. And over those same years, I've seen the volume of the mail go down. We've tried to keep up with the good fight and try to educate our members to work contractually. And sometimes, some members, they just they have their own situations, and they need to get home for their kids or what have you. Some of them don't want to work overtime. Some of them do want to work the overtime, and we just have to balance all of that stuff out. And management always has their own agenda, and unfortunately we have to protect the contract, protect the members. I started in '94. Just made my 31 years this past October. I was actually getting ready to retire in 2 years, 2027. But when Tony Polillo, our former president, retired, it didn't make sense to me to just do one term, because our terms are 3 years. So I said, at the very least, I'll do 2 terms and help the other members, younger members, up and coming, to prepare the branch to take over when I do eventually retire. Even Andy himself might retire before me. So right now I'm in the process of getting the right people in the right place to take over in the future. Matter of fact, one of my younger stewards just went to DRT training in Augusta, Marietta, Georgia, and he passed with flying colors. And we're proud to add another member to our board, our membership, to help defend the contract and our members. Other than that, I'll pass it on to Andy if he has anything else to say before we dive into the blood drives. I haven't been involved as long as Andy was with the union, so I was not at the beginning of the blood drive, of its inception, of the officers that started it. I was told that prior president Mark Sobel and our former vice president Brian Keelan, may he rest in peace, they were the 2 architects of the blood drive, the way it started. And obviously Tony, as a board member, became involved probably when Brian passed away, and then Andy probably segued in that position also when Mark Sobel finally retired himself. So I've been a role player in the years that I wasn't an executive officer. Like I said, I was a trustee. So we've helped out in all aspects of setting up the blood drives and the preparation that goes into it. And maybe Andy has a little bit more insight about the history of the blood drive.
Yeah, Andy, before we get to that, I just feel I want to follow up on a couple of things you said, because I think they're really important. Flushing, as you mentioned, I'm glad you mentioned the diversity because, for those maybe that haven't been to New York City or to Queens in particular, it is literally the most diverse place in the United States. Any type of community you can imagine is there. And that is very much reflected in the membership of the branch. So, I think as we go through and talk about this blood drive, like the impact across the communities within your branch is really incredible. So Andy, this is something I know is, from you and I talking about it both at the Heroes event earlier this year and just recently. Something that's near and dear to your heart, and you've been really involved with this for a long time now. Why don't you let's start with Phil mentioned a little bit about how it began, but let's start there with how this started, and then we'll kind of dive into what it's grown into today. But let's kind of start at the beginning.
All right. It started with, like Phil said, the past president, Mark Sobel, and the vice president, Brian Keelan. That started in 2000. Brian started it. And over the years, when Mark Sobel was no longer the president and Tony got elected, Brian Keelan passed away. And shortly after, and Tony approached me and said, "Look, I want to make you the blood drive coordinator for the district." So I said, "Okay, no problem." So that's when I really started getting involved. We first started out in the year 2000. We started out with one blood drive a year, and it was actually pretty successful. And then I think the following year we went to two blood drives, and then we worked our way up to three blood drives a year. And as of today, we collected almost 1,600 pints of blood, which saved nearly 4,800 patients that were in need over the blood over the years. But it started out a little slow and really started snowballing because once you donate for the first time, you're on New York Blood Services mailing list. They get your email, your cell phone number, they text message you. So they alert you whenever we have our blood drives. So that's how we keep getting members and people off the street to keep coming back. And also, our union, we serve food. We get a couple trays of hot food, pizza. New York Blood Services, they supply, cookies and juice for everybody. And also what we like to do is to keep people coming back and to spread the word is we also have raffles for every person that donates or attempts to donate. We give them a raffle ticket when they come in. And at the end of the blood drive, which is also our union meeting, we raffle off maybe 5, 6, 7 things. And usually the gifts that we raffle off are gifts that people receive during the course of the year over holidays that they just never open up, that they don't want. So we always try to remind them at our union meetings, especially around the holidays coming up, if you get a gift that you don't like, don't open it up. Bring it to the union meeting so we can raffle it off in the future. And then during the course of the year, we get people that sometimes they'll buy candles. We got bottles of wine. Some interesting things. As long as it's, clean, unused, we raffle it off. And that helps people. That gets people to keep coming back. So it's really, over the years, it's really snowballing. And now we're getting a good percentage of people from the street that just keep coming every meeting. So it's not only letter carriers, it's people from the community. So it's really taken off well, and it's having a good impact on the community. And hopefully we'll keep it going. But I can't solely take credit for the success of the blood drive because it's really a group effort. The board does their share between setting up, cleaning up, ordering the food. Of course, you have the donors that come in and donate. So there's a lot of work that's involved, and it's definitely a group effort. Tony and I can't just take full responsibility for it, but it is definitely successful. Most of the blood drives, once in a while you get a little curveball. There's bad weather,
Mhm.
snow. So it's not a guarantee, but usually it's pretty much a success. New York Blood Services says as long as they could get at least 20, 25 pints, it's worth it for them to come and set up. And there was some nights we had almost close to 50 in one night. So it's really good. I'm proud of it. And I try to encourage a lot of people during the course of the year to donate. I hear all the excuses. I tell them, look, I donated over the years, it must be like 9 gallons. I'm still breathing. So I don't want to hear it, come down. It's a good time. And unlike the union meeting, the blood drive is not just for union members, it's for anybody. So we also encourage people to bring friends, family. And out of the 3 blood drives, we named each one after a deceased member in honor of them. And sometimes we get some of their family members that come to the blood drive in honor of the deceased member. So it's good, exciting. I remember Larry Sorelli used to come to our blood drives. We had some, a lot of people come. So it's really good.
Yeah, I think the number that you gave of nearly 5,000 people have benefited and in a lot of cases saved or sustained lives as a result of this. It's just a staggering number.
Right.
Also, I think if I'm not sure if this was the intention, going all the way back to when this first started, but the way I think the blueprint for the branch has been you start with a singular blood drive, and the idea is to continue to hold them and get people to continue coming back. And that involves members of the branch, of course, but it also involves others in the community, which we'll get to in just a second. But I want to just get you guys your thoughts on how the branch has been able to continue to engage our members to support this, to come donate directly, obviously, if they have the ability to do that. Let's start with the members of the branch themselves, because as you said, there's a lot of moving parts here, and there's a lot of people involved, from the logistics to the planning to getting the word out to food or to the raffles. I mean, there's so many different things. What do you think is the most effective way to get those members involved? Because there may be other branches listening that may think, hey, we want to do something like this.
Well, Brian, we even have a retired member that we give flyers to. We make them up, and he walks around the area where we host the blood drive, and goes to businesses and asks them, would you mind if you hang the flyer in your window? So that gets the message out. We put an air in the local paper. Obviously, we put it in our branch paper. We put it on our website when the blood drives are. We send out mailings to all 21 stations to the shop stewards to hang on their union bulletin board. We encourage the shop stewards to make announcements. So the word is out there. If you're working in Flushing, you know about the blood drives. And plus, it's been going on for so many years, 25 years. So it's understood. It's always January, August, and April. We try and keep the same months, the same dates of the union meeting, which is the second Wednesday of the month, to try and be consistent so there's no miscommunication. And it seems to be effective.
Absolutely. So you've also engaged others in the community, not just individuals, but other groups. For example, I know the Knights of Columbus is one that participates. Why don't you talk about that a little bit? Because when it comes to, we look at a lot of the different things we do, whether it's our food drive or maybe what we do for MDA, those kind of local relationships, whether it's with other unions locally or other community groups, usually turns out to be a really productive way for us to continue to grow and grow the impact. You guys have done a great job with that. So why don't you talk about some of the other groups that you work with?
Well, we hold our union meetings at a Knights of Columbus. We rent out their party room. They have a big party room. So obviously there's a lot of traffic there, with various other unions holding meetings. They hold their own meetings. So we always put a flyer on their bulletin board. They know about it. And also, believe it or not, being the food drive coordinator, I reach out to the food pantry, the church, where we donate the food to every year. they put it in their newspaper, their bulletin. They hang it in the lobby of their church. So we have had people come from Catholic charities come to our blood drive and donate blood. So we're trying to use all the avenues that we can to spread the word, and hopefully, maybe one day we'll be getting 100 pints of blood each blood drive.
Yeah,
So,
we as letter carriers, because of the work we do and the fact that we, just naturally develop so many relationships throughout a community, I think we've shown for many years, we have a unique opportunity and ability to bring a community together to do things that help that community. And this is just another excellent example of
I just
that.
wanted to piggyback on what you mentioned, what Andy mentioned about the community involvement. Like we said, President Emeritus Tony Palillo was instrumental in getting ahead of everything and being on top of stuff and scheduling and stuff. He was also our local political liaison with Congresswoman Grace Mings, who herself has a lot of ties within the community. And through her and her contacts, we get the word out even further out than maybe would be possible just on our own.
Phil, I know you've mentioned Tony a couple times, and obviously Mark as well, the two past presidents of your branch that have been, certainly done all sorts of things over the years to help letter carriers in Flushing and beyond, but in particular on this. But I want to focus on the two of them for a minute. Obviously, this started during Mark's presidency. I'm always thrilled when I have an opportunity to see him, and Tony, of course, is Andy, as you mentioned, was instrumental in, continuing to support and grow this. And we were just thrilled to have you and Tony in DC for the Heroes Luncheon that we mentioned earlier. But Phil, I guess this is a good one for you. You mentioned in the opening how when you have a longtime president like Tony, who is, as good at doing that job as anybody has ever been. I don't think anybody that knows him would disagree with that. This blood drive is one example. You mentioned some other stuff, but what takeaways do you have from not just a transition in general, but specifically this blood drive that had gone on for so many years? And, now earlier this year, you take over as president. I know you're committed to continuing it and continuing to grow it, but just talk a little bit about like what that torch passing is like and how you take on that responsibility and based on the experience you've had over the course of this year, what does it take to be successful to continue to carry things forward?
Well, of course, number one is always to have good leadership. Obviously, number one, because good leadership trickles down to the members and to the board members. And Tony had a lot of confidence in me when he made me the treasurer 6 years ago, like I said, and he was also instrumental in me becoming the DRT member. I was actually the lead DRT member for the Triborough DRT Step B team, and I only stepped down because of the presidency. With that being said, being the road that I took a lot of structure, which is necessary when you need to be president. Again, this is my first year, so I'm open to the other officers that were there before me because they know how things basically run. So I'm always open to information and advice from everyone. Obviously, as the years go on, I'll develop into a better president and better skills. Believe it or not, I'm not a good public speaker, but actually being a steward, because I also started as a steward about 20 years ago myself, and standing in front of our members at the stations. Tony and Mark always encourage us to have our own little mini union meeting after the main meeting, because a lot of, for whatever reason, members can't make it to the meeting. So that started the road for me being able to become a better speaker, a better public speaker, and giving the speeches of an information that was given to us at the meetings. Fast forward, like I said, over the years, like I've done it for over 20 years now. One of my toughest challenges actually was when the CCAs were created in 2013 under the DOS award. And we had very little amount of CCAs on each station. Our station literally only had 3 CCAs, and they were working more than 7 days a week. 7 days a week, yes. Working those Sundays, 14 days, 21 days straight without a break, you know. And actually, Tony was, I don't know if nationwide if it was like this, but he was instrumental in our installation to get the postmaster to agree to give them at least 1 day off, because they drive a lot, and that it wasn't safe for them to be driving after working, 6-7 days, 10-12 hours. And the postmaster then, saw the light, and he agreed that we would try to give them at least 1 day off during the week so they wouldn't burn out. So again, like I said, that was my toughest challenge as a steward coming up, was the CCAs. And the way the contract initially, the DOS award did not give them full protection as it did with the career employees. But over the years, I like to thank National for getting better contracts that focused on making it better for the CCAs. Instrumental in that was also, giving them 6 holidays, something we never had as PTFs. They always, whenever a holiday came around, it was like, oh, all right, that's your day off. I'm like, so, things have gotten a lot better for the CCAs. And again, you guys were instrumental in making the 24-month conversion. In the beginning, our CCAs were converting before the 2-year break in service. And then it got to the point where it was like 2.5 years, 3 years. And then you guys, I believe it was the 2016-2019 contract where you guys implemented the 24-month conversion. So that was very helpful in getting our CCAs to career employees, where they had the full benefits and the full protection of the contract. And I'd like to thank you and the executive board for being instrumental. You may not get enough praise for it, but you were very instrumental in improving the workplace for all our employees. With that being said, as I was elevated to the DRT, I was exposed to a lot of different things that happen in other installations. At present, Triborough District was not realigned when the post office went, I believe, from 63 to 50 districts. But the DRT did not realign with that. So under the old Triborough, we covered all of Queens, which was Long Island City, Jamaica, and Flushing, Brooklyn, Staten Island, and I throw people a curve, Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. So they had a lot of stuff that we never had to deal with in Flushing. And, it was always, like I said, it was an eye-opener, great experience to learn what goes on in those other places. Specifically like in Puerto Rico, they have to deal a lot with grievances related to hurricanes, state holidays that we don't have. Their locals a little different, because the situation is just different. So it was a great learning experience to be exposed to all of that, and I thank everyone that was instrumental, even Larry Cirilli, who was the MBA at the time. And right now, Bruce Dickerson is the current MBA for Region 15. Thank you for their support. I actually went to DRT training in 2019, but because of the pandemic in 2020, I wasn't called up until 2021. So there was like a 1.5 year gap there where I had like really no experience doing B decisions. And when I got called up, the 2 guys that were there previous to me were actually retiring. So I had a short learning curve because they retired within 3 weeks of me being called up to DRT. And then I was literally up there by myself because my management counterpart was working remotely from home. And so for the month of November and December, I was literally in the office by myself with piles of DRT appeals coming up. And I'm like by myself, for lack of a better word. But, I persevered. I just kept going, and I knew better days were coming. And eventually my counterpart was made to come back to work full time. And the Triborough DRT does have a big load because of the big installations that we cover. He was activated a second backup team, which is basically a permanent backup team. former branch 357 Long Island City President Dave Van Aken. He was my partner, and we actually worked with only one management person for almost a year and a half, 2 years. So it's 2-on-1 kind of things, but we got things done. We worked well. He was my zing to my zang, and yin to my yang. I'm sorry. Ironically, Dave just retired, and I got promoted to the presidency right about the same time. So the two people that took over for us kind of, didn't have our personal guidance right there. They call us, in the beginning anyway, they called us a lot, what do we do with this? What do we do that? How do I do this? How do we do that? Manager's trying to do this, trying to do that, but they're doing better. And it's just a process that everybody has to go through. Like I say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that the kind of common theme is relying on the people that have experience and are there and still willing to help, like your predecessors as branch president remain
Right.
today as being there to help you. So, Andy, I would guess you have a ton of stories about how this blood drive and the blood that's been donated has helped people. But I'd like to ask you maybe if there's one that stands out to you that you'd like to share that, might kind of illustrate the impact and the benefit that this has on those that are in need of blood in the community.
Well, a lot of the blood, I believe, goes to cancer patients. I think 25% of the blood supply that's collected goes to cancer patients. I know when I donate, usually a month after the donation, New York Blood Services mailed you a letter letting you know where your blood actually went. Like it'll tell you like what neighborhood, and it'll say we use your blood in Queens to help a baby. So it's pretty rewarding when you hear that. And also it's nice when we hold the blood drive and people that come to our blood drives that's been to other ones and they thank us on the way out saying I never been to
Mm-hmm.
a blood drive where they actually served me a hot meal.
Mm-hmm.
Usually you just get the cookies and the juice from New York Blood Services. So that alone, is another thing that gets the people to keep coming back. And that's pretty rewarding too when, they're helping us by, donating blood, and then on the way out, they're thanking us. So it's pretty good. Everyone's helping each other.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank you guys for, of course, getting on the podcast, but more importantly, for everything you do for the members of Branch 294. This blood drive is just a remarkable effort every year. I have no doubt it's just going to continue to grow and get bigger and better in the future. And, our hope is that if, other folks out there are listening to this and they may want to start this kind of thing in their branch, I have no doubt that we could connect them with you guys and you'd be more than willing to help them out.
It's really not that hard to get started. You just have to reach
Mm-hmm.
out to the organization that is in charge of the blood bank. Like here in New York, it's New York Blood Services. I'm sure, maybe New Jersey has New Jersey Blood Services. And let them know you're interested in organizing a blood drive. And, you just need a location, and they'll definitely walk you through it and help you out a lot. And one person really can't do it by themselves. You just need like maybe a committee, a couple people to volunteer their time and help set it up. And then you'll see, it'll just take off. Like, I'm a firm believer, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So when we hold our blood drives, pretty much the same people that volunteer do the same job. Like the servers that serves the food serves the food. I work the door, and everyone knows their job, does it, and makes it go a lot smoother. I even drew up a diagram on how we want the room set up. So when New York Blood Services comes, if it's a different crew, they know where to put the tables, where to put the computers to sign in. It just makes everything go a lot smoother and a lot quicker. We even try and get the same people from the blood services that always do our blood drives, but sometimes, they're not there. They're assigned to another blood drive. But once you start keeping everything the same and everyone knows their job, it's easy, very easy.
Yeah.
I also want to piggyback. We don't have like separate meetings. We piggyback on our regular meetings, monthly meetings. So we already have like a core of people that are gonna show up, and then we have a lot of people, like Andy said before, that come off the street because they send them um, text messages and emails and mailings, and then we have the little poster board outside of the Knights of Columbus. So somebody walking by can say, "Oh, this place is giving blood." Some people, once they start giving, they keep giving, so they become accustomed to doing it. And like Andy said, we're consistently having blood drives. We try to keep it January, April, and August, so people get into the routine of knowing, oh, Branch 294's blood drive is coming up. Let me make sure, confirm what date it is, what time it is. And that's the other thing. The blood drive itself is beyond the hours of the actual meeting. We usually have it from 3:30 to 8, so that people, like I said, try to be as flexible as possible for people to be able to make it. And obviously, we have members, because of time changes, that get off later. The blood drive is still available to them, and we usually have plenty of food for everybody, to keep everybody, happy and keep coming to the meetings. And yeah, other than that, I'm happy to be part of this, and I'm glad I have somebody like Tony and Andy that is still there, that are showing us the ropes, and continue into the future with this.
And
Sounds great. I know you guys will. I know you'll never stop trying to make it better constantly.
Brian, you'd be surprised. Every blood drive, we get a nice handful of retirees that come out. They look forward to it. They're the ones that come early because they're sitting home, and it's like a day out for them. They come, they donate blood, they see a couple people, they hear what's going on at the meetings. And another thing I want to add, before you donate blood, they give you like a quick physical. They test your iron, they test your pulse, your temperature. And we had, over the years, one or two members, because they came and donated blood and had that little physical, they realized that they had a problem, that something wasn't right. So they had to go see a doctor, whether it was high blood pressure, low iron. So that's another positive side about donating blood. That little quick physical might reveal something that's been bothering you, that's not right on your body, where you can get it addressed before it's too late.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the retirees. You guys know this, but for our listeners out there, there is an incredibly special group of retirees in Branch 294. I've been fortunate over the years to have had multiple opportunities to spend a lot of time with them, and I suspect some of those are the same folks that show up to the blood drive. So as this episode comes out, it is Thanksgiving week, and that's one of the reasons that we wanted to have you guys on as we enter this holiday season where we all want to give thanks for things. I think recognizing wonderful work that's being done to the community is a really important part of the holiday season, especially as we go into, as I said, Thanksgiving, and we're certainly appreciative of the work that you guys do. So before we get out of here, I wanted to give you the opportunity, if you have any Thanksgiving related message that you want to share with the listeners to the Fight Like Hell podcast. Andy, we'll start with you.
Okay, well, I'd just like to, in closing, mention that if there is any other branches out there that are interested and they have any questions or any advice, to reach out to us at Branch 294, give a call, leave a message. I'll call them back. I'll give them some pointers. I'll help them out as much as I could. And maybe we could go from like one branch to maybe 20 branches doing it and really increase this throughout the country. And also, if 1% more of the population donated, that would eliminate the blood shortage. So that's another thing we could try maybe and accomplish down the road. And
Excellent.
Obviously, I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, brother. Phil?
One other thing I wanted to piggyback on what Andy said. Over the years of doing the blood drive, I actually have a rare blood type that they actually prefer my platelets as opposed to the whole blood. So I actually go on my own to the one of the local New York blood centers to just to do platelets donations, and that usually takes about an hour to 2 hours. So just donating blood opened my eyes to other aspects of need out there. And with that being said, I also like to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Don't eat too much turkey. Don't fall asleep during the football games. And for Ed, I'm a fan of a divisional rival. We'll keep it at that. Thank you.
Sounds good. Well, thank
Brian,
you guys. We appreciate you. And go ahead, Andy.
Sorry, Brian. One other thing I thought of, like over these last 25 years of doing this, we tried one year at the blood drive doing a bone marrow drive, and where they had a special guy come to our meeting that just specializes in the bone marrow donations. But that was a little more difficult to do, but 2 or 3 people did submit their name. So I don't know what the outcome was, but we tried that. It wasn't as successful as the blood drive because I believe it's a little more complicated than just sticking a needle in your arm and 60 minutes you're done, or 40 minutes.
Right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. Again, we are really appreciative of everything that you do there at Branch 294, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Fight Like Hell podcast. Please subscribe so that you don't miss an episode, and please share the podcast with our NALC brothers and sisters. You can follow the NALC on social media using Facebook, X, and Instagram. You can find links to our accounts in the episode descriptions. May your steward be by your side, and may the union have your back. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.